I'm just getting
I just started on Zoom text.
It is 8 o'clock, so I will at this time call the Tuesday, June 4th Common Council meeting, Whitley County, to order, and we will start by honoring our country today with the national anthem.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now at this time suspend the Common Council meeting, and we will open the public hearing portion of this day's events, and I will set a few ground rules for that, for the public hearing before we get started. Anybody who would like to speak either for or against the local income tax ordinance that's been brought in front of us today, I would ask that you would come up to this chair that is open. There's a microphone there. Please introduce yourself. State your address. If you are here to speak for yourself, we will limit it to 3 minutes. If you're speaking for a group or an organization of people, we'll give you 10 minutes to speak. Won't cut you off mid-sentence, but we would like to try to limit it. I will limit the public hearing this morning to a maximum of 1 hour of public input, and then we will move forward from that. So with those ground rules being set, I would ask at this time, is there anybody who would like to come forward to speak on the local income tax ordinance that's being considered? Yes.
Hello. My name is Carly LaRue, and I am the health educator here at the Health Department. My address, 7664 South, 600 East, Columbia City. I'm here to voice my professional opinion on the jail program. So I see that the agenda lists it as an income tax, but it's kind of misleading, so I kind of want to further explain that. So anybody, in their right mind is going to say no to paying more in taxes. Taxes is kind of that dirty, avoided word, right? It's kind of been a long-standing problem that we've had this overcrowding jail issue, right? This program would fix it as a long-term solution and not just a Band-Aid. This is about being a leader for communities to follow, and this is about saving people's lives and saving taxpayers' money. So, it's odd to suggest that a slight tax increase, that 0.2% tax increase, could actually save someone money, but it's pretty true. So Indiana jails have been overpopulated for a long time, and not overpopulated by a handful of people, but by dozens. Dozens of people that are sleeping and eating on the floors. So according to a 2017 jail inspection report from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, we had a population of 120 with enough beds for 104. The state also suggests never going above 80% capacity, yet we were at 115%. That adds strain to the building itself and requires you to hire more confinement officers and pay their salary and their benefits. High populations of officers and inmates add strain in more ways than one. You have more liability, and people are usually more hostile when they're cooped up in too small of an area with too many people. The state is requiring us to fix this problem. They have been for quite some time now. And it's not optional. It's not something that can really wait. I mean, you can argue that we can build another jail, something that's bigger, maybe not in town. You can argue that, sure. But how long do we have before that really fills up? And, I mean, you can argue that some of these people aren't necessarily Whitley County residents, but are coming from 30. But what are you going to do with that? I mean, are you just going to not arrest them? Are you going to ship them out of state? Our jail is too populated. It's too full. People are coming back through the system time and time again, and this tough on crime ideology doesn't always work. When you don't have the skills to process the consequences of your actions, you don't fix the problem. So if you grew up without being taught the difference of right and wrong, you can't expect them to spontaneously know when they get arrested. People have a variety of reasons why they're in jail, and mental health has a lot to do with a lot of them. So, and a facility that can incorporate mental health, incorporate people to get jobs, the whole person addressing that can make a big difference. Because within our county, according to county health rankings, we have one mental health professional for 1,420 people. The state average is 670. So we don't have enough mental health providers, and the people that are going through our jail, they're a lot of our population that we really need to target and fix that problem. You know, most of our population in the jail are low-risk technical offenders like probation violations. These, you know, there are people that do belong in jail, not arguing that at all, but there also needs to be a facility that helps push people in the right direction. Having a facility that can help them with mental health and prepare them for their workforce is not only going to keep them out of jail, but it's going to make them a functional, contributing member of our community. It's time to fix the problem, not next year, but now. I mean, we can't afford to push back this deadline anymore.
Thank you. Sheriff Gatton.
Mark Gatton, Whitley County Sheriff. I'll give you the address of 101 West Market Street, Columbia City, Indiana. First, let me start off that there's no easy solution as we look into the future of this problem. I will come straight forward and say I do support a jail tax, but with some very big speculation because I don't know which way that jail tax money is best to be spent right now. But as a taxpayer and also as a sheriff, I don't believe Whitley County taxpayers should be forced to pay hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to give inmates treatment, vocational. Myself, if I became addicted to drugs and we're giving inmates treatments, I don't think that's right. I wouldn't get free treatment. Second of all, I have a hard time if we don't staff our jail to full and we start helping inmates before we help our staff. The jail is currently understaffed by 9 people. So last, I leave you with this. We will eventually have to spend money. We can't keep kicking this same can. So if the jail tax passes, I hope we can work diligently and exhaust all of our resources to find out the best solution for the taxpayers of Whitley County.
Anyone else, please?
Gentlemen, I'm going to stand if it's all the same with you. I feel a little more comfortable when I'm up talking in my line of work. You don't want to be sitting down, you get cornered too easily, I'm afraid. So, like the sheriff, DJ Sigler, I'm the prosecuting attorney, 101 West Van Buren, for those of you who don't know where to find me. Thank you, Mr. President. I too stand in support today of this particular measure. We have worked hard, and I think I've represented specifically to this body that part of our obligation was to go away and to do our homework prior to asking this body and asking this community to expend any funds. And I stand by that, and I think we have done that work. Councilman Comfort has been a critical part of what we've been doing to educate ourselves. And as chairman of the jail task force, I can tell you that we've had some parallel initiatives that I think that have educated us just as well. But before we get into what the solutions can be, very briefly, I think I was gratified to hear the sheriff's comments. I think he was spot on. We all understand what the problem is, and I know you understand it best because when the lawsuits come down, it's your names that appear at the top in the caption, right? And so we have a problem of human proportions and serious proportions in that jail. And how do we solve it? So we all understand the problem, how do we solve it? Well, as I've said, we spent the past several months understanding that problem and trying to find a common way to communicate about it, because all of us have a different take and tack. The sheriff comes at it from a perspective, I come at it from a perspective, you come at it from a perspective of having to be a responsible steward of the taxpayer funds. So we had to find a common language. And that common language was grounded in and around the idea that we are going to be poor stewards for our taxpayers in terms of public safety or in terms of public funds if we continue to allow the liabilities that exist in the system to be exacerbated by a facility that no longer meets the needs. We joke in my office that we have the best run office for a public safety office that $1982 can buy. We joke about that because we have to be more modern. We have to be different in our approach. We have to be proactive in our approach to these problems. So I said at the outset that I didn't want to bring you a problem without bringing you a solution, and I think that these parallel tracks that I've discussed, our jail task force track, along with the idea of what's going to happen when the Supreme Court rules regarding bond come into effect, when that comes into effect, that also has an impact on the decisions you make here today, and I think it will further ameliorate or make better this problem that we're all faced with. The good news about this entire process, I think, really positive and powerful thing, is our engagement with this body, through Councilman Comfer and Councilman Barrett and some of the folks that have been involved in it, but also as a community, as a law enforcement, as a public safety community. We've really pulled together, identified the resources, where all of our shortcomings are, and how to improve them. Not in the name of building a building or expending funds, but in the name of doing a better job for the people we serve. So that's really what we're here about. So I stand in support of this measure, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time that this body may have. I thank you very much.
Hello, Council. Ryan Daniel, Mayor of the City of Columbia City, 112 South Chauncey Street, Columbia City. I just want to address two things real quick. Number one is the financial model. I just want to ensure on the record, and I'm pretty sure based on the information I've found, that this isn't the case, but I just want to ensure that the current income tax dollars coming to the city doesn't necessarily change with this with this ordinance. So that's the first thing. Second thing, and maybe more on the human component. As you know, times have changed since our current jail was built. Problems have changed, people have changed. As you well know, if you look at our the newspaper on a consistent basis and see who's going into our jail, majority of those individuals are not our residents, right? They're individuals that are coming through town or individuals that happen to be strolling through the community or through the county. So I think that's one thing to take into consideration. But I think the other thing, and maybe more importantly, is there are a multitude of issues, as you well know, of individuals that are going into those jails, or into that jail. And I think we have to look at it from the human component for sure. You've seen the state of Indiana take a much more aggressive role in trying to rehabilitate individuals and get them out into the workforce. As you well know, we have a workforce shortage right now. We have plenty of businesses that are looking for individuals. The state has taken an active role in trying to take individuals and rehabilitate them and put them into the workforce. I think as a whole, it's important for our community, our county to step forward and say, hey, there's more than just one way to fix a problem. And throwing individuals into the jail and just letting them sit and rot, I don't think is, I think that's the old way. I really do. I think there's a lot of comprehensive ways in which we can improve the problem that is currently happening in our jail right now. So I thought it would be helpful. I don't necessarily speak on behalf of my citizens. I'll tell you because my citizens haven't really talked to me about this issue. So I can just tell you from the city standpoint is that as we're looking at our workforce, as we're looking at our citizens, as we're looking at the people that inhabit this community, I just want to make sure that you're taking a look from a comprehensive standpoint of how we address the issues that are ahead of us. So, thank you.
Anyone else, please?
I'd like to ask Dan a question. The jail task force has got a plan. What do you foresee doing if this passes, if the tax passes? What do you propose we do with it?
Thank you, Councilman. Come up there.
Well, I think the first thing is you don't say, even at this juncture, that you have a one-size-fits-all solution. And I certainly understand the sheriff's commentary, and I don't think anybody at our level is prepared to say that a facility or a program or a giveaway of any amount of money is what's going to solve this problem. Okay. What's going to solve this problem is continuing the process that we're on, and that's how to best deal with the people in the system that continue to cost us our public safety dollars, right? It's an investment. We think about it in terms of an investment, not necessarily in people who've made bad decisions, but in a facility or set of facilities or a set of programs that create a better citizen on the end of it, as opposed to on the front. We have talked mainly and principally as a group about having a smaller facility, much smaller than a new jail, at a certain level of cost that provides not free services, that is not a giveaway to people who have made bad decisions, but gives us a place to house people who are nonviolent, who are, in the estimation of the professionals that work with them day in and day out, have the ability and the desire to be better citizens, right? We're going to be housing bad guys and bad gals to the end of time. I mean, there's a certain segment of the criminal population that, in my view, and I'm sure in the sheriff's view, are simply beyond rehabilitation and have turned their back, candidly, on anything we might be able to provide for them as a community. But as a business person, you look at it and you say, if my investment on the front end is $1, and on the back end, if I don't do anything, it's going to cost me $30. That's how we've approached this problem. So right now, to answer your question more specifically and succinctly, right now the idea is that we would have a facility that would house technical violators, people who are on probation or on suspended sentence, who need supervision by probation department, by home detention, by the work release folks. We would have a place for them to be that is less expensive than a brand new jail, but still holds them accountable for the things that they've done, and also makes space available to them if they make the choice, not as a freebie, not as a giveaway, but if they make the choice to improve themselves, to learn a skill, but most importantly to break the bond of addiction that we all understand exists in this community, is going to exist tomorrow. No matter what the outcome of today's hearing is, it's going to exist tomorrow, it's going to exist next week, it's going to exist next month, and this body and this community is going to be forced to pay for it over time, continually. So what we have endeavored to do is find the most efficient solution for creating better citizens from an imperfect system, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Just a quick note to add. My name's Sean Martin. I'm the jail commander. We all know, to go along with what Prosecutor Fidlar said, we need a full solution. What we all got to understand is everything starts at the jail. No matter where they go, if they go to work release, if they go to community corrections or probation, it all comes through the jail to begin with. So if we don't find a solution, and to go along with what Carly said, I believe that there's a need for treatment, but at what cost is that going to be? So I'd like to see if we can work towards the best value for the dollar that we're getting with this solution, and whether that be a jail, whether that be a TRV center, just as long as we can work together as a community to make that happen. I think that would be our best bet. So that's what I would like to add.
Yes, sir.
Let me just address one thing that Sean said, because I think it's exactly right, but I've heard it a couple times. I want to make sure we're speaking apples to apples. I don't think the jail task force committee is at the point where we're, and I absolutely agree that the jail is the gatekeeper for the entire process. That is true. No question about that. But I've heard it a couple times, and I want to make sure that I've absolutely focused this point to you. nobody is talking about providing a drug addict college, okay? From my perspective, giving away treatment isn't an answer in and of itself. And asking taxpayers to fund a giveaway is not what I'm here about. Much like the system that we have in place now, where offenders are required to pay for the services they receive, so they would continue to be required to pay for a portion of the services that they receive. So I don't want to leave the impression that the position of the task force is that the taxpayers should write a blank check to a bunch of people who have made poor choices, and they get to continue to make those poor choices and reap benefit. That's not it. That's not what I'm saying, not what I'm advocating for. What I'm advocating for is an improvement to the system that houses all of these things together at a savings and at an efficiency to taxpayers. Okay, and what form that looks like, I agree with the sheriff and with Sean. We're not settled on 100% yet, but I do know that if we don't address the problem front end at the jail, when we've got these folks coming in, we're going to have this problem on the streets and in the communities for a number of years to follow. So I just want to be clear about what our expectation is. It's not a giveaway. It's not giving addicts and people who failed at rehab an opportunity on the taxpayer dime to get better. No, there are requirements, and they would be required to be part of the solution, including part of the financial solution.
What are some of the things that, if we don't do something, what happens?
Well, I mean, the first and foremost, I mean, to my way of thinking, I mean, as a recovering civil attorney, I can tell you that I would be concerned about the liability as I sit there from your perspective. What's going to happen when we have another inmate, despite the best efforts of the sheriff and the jail commander and a really dedicated group of people who go in there into terrible conditions day in and day out, overcrowded? What happens when they get hurt, or when somebody we're housing for a relatively minor offense gets hurt? So I would be concerned from your perspective about that. The other, as a member of the community, as a guy who had to call last Friday because he had people blaring music too loud close to his house and had a loose dog, and the expectations of even having small things taken care of by our local law enforcement who are stretched too far too thin, I'll tell you that the danger is that we have law enforcement resources tied up in dealing with silly and smaller things when they could be. You know, I don't want to speak for these guys, but I know for a fact that law enforcement officials, you know, often doing a small civic-minded task, are confronted with the age-old question, well, don't you have anything better to do? And the answer is yes. I got a life to save, I got somebody to protect, but right now I'm dealing with you. And I think it's kind of that mentality, too, that brings us to this point, that we all have better things to be doing, rather than dealing with these low-level offenders who are doing stupid, costly, dangerous things in our community, when we could be focusing that energy and that attention and those resources on preventing those people from doing the same silly, stupid, and dangerous thing down the line. It's very much an investment question as far as I'm concerned, Councilman.
Thank you.
Sheriff Gatton?
George, do you want to elaborate, or would you like me just slightly get Councilman over here on what we spoke about this morning to help the crowd? Or do you want to do that in the regular meeting?
That would be great. If you want to come forward and share that, Sheriff, that would be tremendous.
Still the same guy I was last time I came up, so.
We all know.
If you remember, was it just the last meeting, I had asked you guys to meet, start moving forward? Okay. So we had our first meeting today, brought some outlines about the level 6 monies we get from the state of Indiana. That is money that we're getting for the per diem of housing an inmate on a daily basis. It's raising up at July 1st, and then next year it'll raise up. So right now we're getting $35 a day. It'll go to $37.50 at July 1st, and next year it'll go to $40. So that money comes back from DOC, directly gets deposited into the county general. We have spoke briefly on trying to take that money, which would be, I don't want to say no cost to taxpayers, because there is still additional cost at the jail and stuff, but that money that's coming in to outsource or house those inmates at another facility, with only the amount of money that's coming in, so we're not using any additional appropriations from any other funds. So we will set up a mutual agreement or understanding with another county, house inmates, and get our jail population down to try to get in compliance.
Are there enough spaces available in other jails to do that?
There are a few here in northern Indiana that Sean has made contact and will accept inmates, yes, right now. No female inmates, all male inmates. There's stipulations in there, they want more of a good model inmate, not somebody that's sick or, But we're going to move forward together as a group and talk again, but I think that's a very, very reachable goal for us to get rid of some inmates without any additional cost onto the county. We'll just use the money that we're getting back from the per diem to pay to house these inmates. And then when the jail inspector comes, hopefully this year, we'll be in compliance on population.
And Sheriff Gatton, you see this as just really a short-term solution?
This is just a temporary, short-term solution that will get us into compliance for a while. There's so many variables that we haven't looked at, like level 6. If the number drops, the amount we're housing, we may not be able to cover. We might have to bring some back, which would make the population go up. The biggest problem we're facing is the female population right now, because once they take 2 blocks up, then it's really putting a lot more men per square foot in cell blocks.
And other jails are reluctant to take those.
They will not take females. So just thought I'd slightly hit on that.
And the question, of course, I had this morning, I'll ask it again, is how taking that money that's coming into the general fund now, how will that affect the county's budget and how that money is applied to the needs of the jail at this time? So essentially, it is taking some money away from county general that right now is being spent on something.
That we could use for other jail improvements or things with inside the jail, yes.
How would that affect the budget? Johnny, are you prepared to be able to answer a question like that?
Back billing, yeah. Since July 1st of 15, we've had an influx, but we have to remember, once we get the back billing, it should level off to about $190,000 to $200,000 a year.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yes, that will affect what we've spent it on elsewhere.
Jana Schindbeckler, County Auditor. I actually just really quick wanted to address Mayor Daniel's question about whether it would change their income tax and the amount they get monthly for their certified shares in economic development and public safety. Per the handout that we received from UMBAL a few months ago when we had the joint meeting, if we adopt this rate, our total income taxes will be 1.4829%. The max allowed is actually 2.5, so we will still be under, so we will not have to shift rates around, and their distribution will not change monthly. For example, down in Wabash, they have been looking at implementing this tax as well, and this will take them over the 2.5%, so they will have to decrease other rates that will change the amount that the taxing districts in their county get. So I just wanted to clear that up for everyone, because I know there was some concern with the cities and towns within the county that received these distributions, and I just wanted to clear that up for everyone. So, thank you.
Mayor, is that what your homework shows you, or you were specifically wanting that information?
Yes, I just wanted to ensure, because sometimes once you raise certain taxes, it can cut back on other individuals' revenues, and obviously with our public safety, income tax, and with our lit, because we combine everything. With all those things, I just wanted to ensure that we had an understanding of where everybody would be going forward. So Janet did a great job answering my question. Thank you.
Yep. Additional input, please. Mr. Shipman, do you have anything you would like to add today?
I don't necessarily, and I don't want to be an advocate. Ultimately, I'm here as counsel for the county. And so, I don't necessarily have anything else. We have had some conversations about making sure that everybody has their questions answered, and potentially, you know, to the extent there are still questions that need answered, maybe tabling this for a little bit, and making sure that people that had scheduled to come here today have the opportunity. If this council thinks that's appropriate, then maybe that's appropriate, and task force committee counsel a little bit more heavily to make sure that any questions that need still to be answered can be answered if need be. I don't have specifically anything else necessarily to say. I think what I said before is exactly the same thing, is that, look, there's some concepts floating, some of which are comfortable, some of which are not. This is really, we know we need to do something, and the only way to do it is to pay for it. And that's the reason for this tax. Most of what you heard today is all great, but it's really the back end, not the front end. The front, I mean, I think everybody that just spoke would say the same thing, is yes, we need money. Sheriff told us this morning, I think, that after this year it'll be single digits of, I'm not going to say this right, but ultimately our jail is older than every jail in the 92 counties, less than 10 or something.
Right now, we're at 12, over the next 2 years, we'll be single.
So, I mean, our jail is as old as almost every other jail in the county or in the state, and so, you know, we're going to have to do something. And I think what we talked about this morning is continuing to put Band-Aids on this jail, throwing good money after bad, instead of figuring a solution and putting that money towards that. Unless you guys have questions for me, I don't.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else to say.
And George, is there anything that you want to add, or can you give me, please, or everyone, an update on the deadline that we're under as far as looking at this?
You know, one of the deadlines that we had is up until July 1st, the legislature was going to change what we can use this funding for. We could use it for anything, actually, up until July 1st, anything that we needed to do, whether it be operational or capital investment, where the bill that was brought forward was that there would only be 40% that would be available for capital funding, or operational funding. The rest of it had to be capital investment. And so, but that did not pass. So the urgency of this is not as critical as what it was, because we'll still be able to do what we want with that money, whether it be operational or capital improvement.
Thank you.
I apologize, but that's what you were trying to ask.
No,
I didn't know.
no, that's right.
But yeah, that is, George is exactly right. You know, when we first started talking about this concept, there was some urgency to get it adopted by July 1st because it gave you more flexibility. That does not exist today. Ultimately, this tax wouldn't be collected until January 1st of next year. So if we adopt it today or in August, it makes no difference. You know, because it's not going to happen tomorrow anyway, so it doesn't make any difference from that perspective.
Thank you. Councilman Barrett?
Listening to everything that has taken place this morning on it, there is no doubt there is a need for this income tax rate, but the urgency of it has no longer in effect on it. Personally, I would like to see it tabled for 1 month, have some more input from some of the constituents, and go in that direction.
Councilman over here.
I think that's probably a good idea. This was not publicized that this hearing was going to happen. There are probably people out there who would like to be here.
This is
Public notice was given.
Yes, it was. Just so that's not on the record, Bill, we didn't put the notice in the paper, but, you know, I mean, it's, who reads public notices anymore, I suppose, but it was done and noticed properly, so.
in compliance with the law.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the rest of what Mike was saying, I think we have to do something. This is the only opportunity I see. If somebody come up with a better idea, I'm all for it. That's plausible. Kim came up with a better idea, but I don't know how you could get it done.
Councilman Comfort?
As everyone has said, these are issues that are going to have to be addressed. No one wants a new tax, but I believe that this particular tax would allow us the most local decision-making. If we do not put some mechanism in place, eventually there will be state mandates or federal court rulings that will force our actions. And we'll have to fund that in a more expensive way through bonding or other mechanisms. And I guess finally the thing is that there is support in the community from corporations and foundations. The community grants are available to help us address this problem together. And anytime we can do something cooperatively, I support it. I think to table it for 1 month is a good idea so that we can gather more information, make more information available, even maybe intentional communications through newspaper articles or letters to the editors of the invested parties would be valuable.
Thank you. Councilman Warner, please.
I'm on the fence. I understand we have a need, we have a problem, but this is my first term. I've talked to a few of my taxpayers in my district. You know, they have more questions and I have more questions. And I agree with Barrett, Councilman Barrett. I like to table for a month and talk to George and Comfort. Councilman Comfort said there's other avenues, but they're not cheaper avenues than taxing the taxpayer more money. I'm not ready to vote on that yet, is where I stand.
Councilman Wheeler?
I totally agree. I think we need to spend more time on it right now. I'm not in favor of the tax. If I had to vote today, I'd say no. Just for the simple fact is I think there's a lot of other avenues that we need to look into before we start taxing people. I'm not a huge fan of it. So I'm in favor of tabling it for now. I'm in favor of looking into more avenues, and hopefully we can find what we need to help jail. I know that's a big issue. As we go forward here, maybe we can find a better solution and that will fit the needs and that everybody can totally agree with it. So that's all I have to say.
Vice Chair Banks.
I think there's a lot of great ideas being kicked around, and I'm in favor of some of these ideas. I'm not in favor of a new tax. And I think that we owe it to the taxpayer to know exactly what it is that we're going to be using these funds for. I don't think we create a new tax to pool money into a bank account and decide later how we'll use that money. I think that we owe it to the taxpayer to know specifically what we're using this new tax that we're taking from them for. What are we using the money for? So at this time, I'm opposed to a new tax, and I'm in favor of tabling and continuing to collaborate with people like Sheriff Gatton, and I would like to hear more from those who were involved in the jail task force and the commissioners, and really hear what the vision is before I continue to consider the tax.
I too have no surprises. I'm pretty similar to what has been being said so far. I am against a new tax, but I do not see an alternative for the work that we need to do and how we need to move forward. I am sensing a consensus here that since we're not under a time constraint anymore, that I would also be in favor of postponing this not any more than another month to make a decision, but I would be of the same mindset to extend this a month. I would like to put it out there too that I would like to hear from people. I would like to know what the taxpayers' wishes are, what the taxpayers ideas are and how, get some input there. I have had some phone calls so far and conversations, but they've been very limited on this issue. I'm not hearing a lot from the public. So that will help me in making my final decision also. So with that being said, at this time,
I have one question on it. I know that we met the requirements as far as notification to the public on it with this public hearing on it. Are there any other avenues other than publication within the newspapers that we can approach to get more input from the general public and constituents? Does anybody have any ideas? Do we have a Facebook page within the county? Do we have a website that people can look up and gather information in reference to this?
How busy you want to be, Sheriff's Department, Facebook, and the mayor posted on his, I think you guys would be overwhelmed, but if that's what you're
Also be entertained by some person.
Well, very much so. With my past background, I understand that. But I have questions about whether or not the general public has received the notifications simply through our approach now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can answer that a little bit. You know, whenever you guys contemplate anything that requires public notice, how much your constituents are engaged and read those things, whether that means that nobody came and spoke in opposition of it, that nobody cares, or whether it means nobody knows. It could be either. You know, you don't know that for sure. I can tell you from some of the sewer district meetings I've been involved in, that when people really are not excited about what it is you're pitching, they're here.
Very much so. Having been involved with that.
And they're back in the room. And that is literally no differently advertised ultimately than today's meeting was. So I will re-advertise it because of the way you guys, if you table it, I think Jan and I will work to make sure we put it back in the paper for legal purposes because of the way we're tabling it. I don't want there to be any question about whether it was noticed and because we're going to reconvene the public hearing. But as far as how do you get the word out there, unfortunately, sometimes, I almost shouldn't say this, but you put something on Facebook and then it just goes crazy. And ultimately what you get is a lot of people that have no idea what we're really talking about their brother, sister who's in the jail and such. I mean, you know how it goes. I mean, it goes in the direction you don't want. I think the idea of more people knowing about it is good about every issue in America today with respect to their elected officials and what, you know, the back and forth, but I don't know how you engage people because it doesn't seem to.
Just to add a little bit further on it, you talk about the sewer district meetings on it. All those persons that were involved in it, including myself, received a letter over and above what the normal advertising was. And that seemed to get more people appearing at those meetings than just normal notification. So I'm not advocating that we send a letter to every constituent taxpayer on it, but that seemed to be the common denominator on getting people there.
There's, we have no control over it, but I'm a little disappointed on our local press that there hasn't been more in the newspaper, not an ad, but discussing the issue we got at jail. It's a big issue that covers everybody in this county. And I just think that it's something that we should be hearing more about and we're not. Another thing is, I think that we needed some specifics on what is proposed to be done. Facilities, are they going to be built or aren't, or what are they? Manpower, what are they taking around, the specifics of what they're proposed to do with the money. To me, we have to do something, but I'd like to see work when we go there.
I don't know if it would increase awareness, but if we could ask our local media outlets as a public service to put the notice on their electronic, on their Facebook or other things. 3 or 4 people more might see it.
Have a final call for any input. Hearing none at this time, we will close the public hearing. And we will re-adjourn into our council meeting.
Because I gotta go do a mediation, actually. You guys, I want to make sure, and maybe we don't need to do this in a public meeting, but what do we do between now and next month to make sure that we have some, are you guys going to form some form of a committee amongst council to kind of engage with the jail task force committee, or how do you see this? What do you want to do, I guess, between now and next month, so that questions that are, we can't, unless we're going to advertise this meeting, it can't be 4 of you, but it can be 3 or groups of 3. Do you guys just want to talk about that and then circle back with us, or do you want to do that?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, and to make sure we don't cross those lines as far as the public meeting part of it. But I think that if we do have some small workshops, that would be appropriate to get some sharing of information. And of course, the public input is going to mean a lot to, I think, most of us up here.
Okay.
So.
But I heard a couple of you say I have questions, I have ideas,
Yep.
thoughts. I want to make sure that those get answered, so.
Yep. This isn't something that, as I shared, I don't expect or desire for it to go any further than next month. I think there's ample enough time that has already been provided for it as far as the education for the people that are here that have to make the decision, along with ample amount of time for public input. So this isn't something that my hopes are that will get drug out, but will be addressed next month, and then we will move forward from there with that information being settled. Okay. Yep. Okay, so the first order of business I'm going to ask then of the council today is ordinance number 2019-06. I have a general idea that you were in favor of tabling that. I would ask for a motion if that is so the wish of the council.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to table 2019-6. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let that shown be that was passed unanimously with all board members present. Next item on the agenda, please, John Myers.
Before I begin, I just want to say that our monthly EDC newsletter is coming out here in 2 weeks, so we'll put something in about the tax to at least make the local business community aware of it. So get it out to a lot of folks that might have an interest, particularly in taxes. It might impact their businesses. I'd also like to take a second and introduce the new marketing director for the EDC. As many of you may know, Katie DeWitt started her own business and has moved on, and we were lucky enough to hire Kennedy St. George, who actually grew up in Columbia City, graduated from Columbia City in 2012, went off to Kansas for the last 7 years, and then one of the recent tornadoes picked her up and brought her back home, so we were able to snag her to help us with a lot of work that we do. Thank you. I'm here to request an abatement on behalf of Alliance Feed, which is a joint venture that is going in close to Shively Feeds out at 600, or Shively Grain out at 600 East, there next to the Whitley County Water Tower. I prepared my regular memo, although I see that I addressed it to the redevelopment commission instead of the county council, so I apologize for that. I didn't. But essentially, the redevelopment commission considered the request, made a favorable pass to the county council for this. And as you can see, 14 new jobs, a substantial investment of over $13.5 million. In speaking with Councilman Wheeler after the redevelopment commission meeting, though, we talked about the fact of what would the impact be on tax revenues if the council were to decide on an abatement less than 10 years, which is typically what we've done in the past. I've done those calculations for you for a 5-year tax abatement, and I think kind of two things there. First off, you might think, well, if it's half the time, it would be half the revenue, but because the tax abatements, the way that they're set up, they're front-end loaded, so it's not a dollar for dollar offset, just based on a year-for-year reduction. So the value of the abatement, if you were to do a shorter abatement of 5 years, only reduces the tax revenue by about $171,000. So two things, well, and then something else I'd like to share. I kind of thought about this after the fact. I had some conversations with Dane Drew, who's the president of the Whitley County Farm Bureau. Typically, when I come and present about an abatement, I don't talk about kind of the knock-on effects in terms of how that abatement and investment is going to impact other employment, other businesses within the community. But because this is essentially taking raw materials from grain farmers in the community to be processed here locally, the factor increase, it's about a 3.1 times increase on the dollars that are being invested versus a manufacturing facility, which might have typically in the so you get like $2 for every dollar that's going in, because the raw materials come from the local economy, there's a much stronger impact. So here's kind of my paperwork that I typically do. I made extra copies, but this is kind of the background stuff that I do when I do these calculations for you. And so if you look at the bottom, kind of the bottom dark blue line below that gives you a sense of the additional job creation dollars being created throughout the rest of the economy due to this project. And so even though it's not reflected in the cover memo, you get an additional net present value on the county income tax of about $325,000. That's the very right hand at the lowest in the last column there. You can also see that the additional income from those jobs over the 15-year period is about $23 million, which, again, typically those numbers aren't that high because, say, a manufacturer buys aluminum from someplace else, so you're not getting the raw materials coming into the facility to pay for it. Certainly, so it's anyway. The project is good for the county. I know Drew wanted to say a couple of words just on behalf of the Farm Bureau and the the local farmers that would benefit from this. I don't know if you want him to come up here, or if you're okay with him just sitting where he is.
That's fine.
All right, I'm Dane Drew. I'm president of the Whitley County Farm Bureau, as well as a local grain farmer. John asked me if I would come and speak about the positive impact that feed mill would have on the community. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and it's one of our nation's greatest success stories, but with success also comes hard work and hard times. If you've noticed in the last few years, crop prices have continued to drop, making not just farmers in our community struggle, but farmers all over the globe. In the first year, the new feed mill is expected to add 14 new jobs to the community, as well as consume 3 million bushels of corn, which will help crop prices be more competitive in our area. There's plenty of room for growth, with 6 million bushels of corn expected to be consumed in their 5th year of operation, as well as an opportunity to add more jobs. If you've heard of the ripple effect, you will understand how a small company such as a feed mill can have such a big impact on the community. Not only will the feed mill drive crop prices up, but it will also make feed more accessible for livestock farmers. With crop prices on the rise, farmers will have more money to spend on equipment, therefore making machinery businesses thrive as well. With an increase in machinery sales, banks and loan officers are seeing more transactions made. In the end, the small ripple that one business creates affects everyone. Put it into perspective, without agribusinesses such as feed mills, livestock production, and farms, we don't have food, and without food, you and I don't exist. We should be welcoming any kind of agribusiness to our community with open arms because we depend on them. Thank you.
And Dennis Shively here as well, although Dennis just came in off the tractor, and I don't think he slept for 3 days, so I don't know if there's...
I can get Drew off the tractor.
That's what I wanted to do. I finished my speech at 2 a.m.
So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Dennis?
I don't have any specific data other than what's before you already.
John, the tax abatements on machinery or on equipment?
Yes, the $10.5 million is new equipment. The $3.1 million is real estate improvements.
Thank you.
How does council wish to proceed?
I make a motion that we pass a 10-year tax abatement for this particular project.
For the 5 years or 10 years?
10-year, sorry, 10-year tax abatement.
Pick a resolution number.
For the real, it would be 2019-05, and the personal would be 2006.
So we have two resolutions. The first one would be for the real property abatement, Resolution 2019-05, and then the second part of it would be the personal property Resolution 2019-06.
Is your motion for both resolutions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll retract what I did, and I'll make a motion that we accept the 2019-05 5-year tax abatement and also the 10-year tax abatement, 2019-06. Make a motion that we approve that.
So I have a motion for a 5-year tax abatement on 2019-05 and for a 10-year on 2019-06. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. I would call for further discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of passing the two resolutions, or the one motion for the two resolutions, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is Mark Sturtevant, please.
In last council meeting, we were discussing the sidewalks around the courthouse. It was asked who is going to be financially responsible ultimately for those sidewalks. And I guess according to our county attorney, who spoke with the city attorney, it looks like we would be financially responsible for the maintenance and/or replacement of the sidewalks around the perimeter of the courthouse. I guess having found this out, my recommendation is we still wait and see what this study that the mayor had talked about is going to entail, just to find out maybe how soon the city's going to replace some of their lighting, if indeed that's what becomes of this study, and maybe we can coordinate this work together. Again, it's my understanding this study will take place this summer, and hopefully we could have a better answers or have a better view of what's going to take place in the future. And then possibly look at replacing those next year. Any questions or?
And the sidewalks don't need that much urgency right now. We're good until that study's done.
We'll just continue to
Patch.
and
Okay.
to level them up as we have in the past.
Okay.
I think it makes good sense to coordinate.
Yeah.
Appreciate your work on that, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosemary Brown, please.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I presented a proposal we have with our software vendor for the recorder's office. It is called Bastion. What Bastion is a hosting service. Instead of us using the county server, we will be hosted off-site by our software company. So that will free up more of the county's server area in their computer system. One of the reasons why I've gone ahead and looked at this is because one big problem we've had lately is Preferred IT is doing their best to keep us from being hit with malware and other problems. But since we've updated to Windows 10, we have had a real problem with being locked out of so many of our programs, and we continuously have to be calling Preferred IT to unlock it because they are working very hard for us not to be hit with severe problems. If we go with Bastion, Fidlar, our software company, has employees who do nothing all day long but continuously look at the data coming in and the data going out to make sure that there is no malware coming in or, some new way that they can get into our documents and steal them from the county. Several of the surrounding larger counties have also gone to this. They found that it is safer and easier with the conditions that the world's in now. One of the things I thought was very funny is they're telling that there's a data breach every 14 seconds. That's pretty amazing in itself. So one of the things I'm sure you're going to ask is who's going to pay for this, because there is a cost. We have a fund that's called the Identity Security Protection Fund, which you have to give as council permission for me to spend. It comes from $2.50 from every document that we record. Usually we gain about $4,000 a year. At this point, there's close to 10 in it because we haven't spent it for security protection for the last couple of years. That money is what we'll utilize to set up this program and get it started and to pay for the first year's cost. Then we'll ask for appropriations to spend that money every year towards this. It will not pay for all of it. The rest will come out of the Recorder's Perpetuation Fund. But I really believe and have done a lot of research on the proper way to take care of the county's. Really, it's our history, and, you know, there are people who are trying continuously to break into that history, and so we need to protect it the best that we can, and I feel having someone who can constantly research this information and make sure that the newest and latest way to breach our contract and our documents is being overseen. Now, they do have 2 facilities. It goes to Central Iowa first, and then they also have a place in New Jersey. One of the things that this system does is if the county was hacked, which let's hope we are never, they can have my system up and running in 4 hours, which, as you know, I don't know if any of you have known, Huntington has had a serious problem in the last month. Their recorder's office and most of the offices in the county government center were down for over a week. So it is important to be able to know that we are protected, and also to help the county with some of their server issues that they're having, because it will free up quite a bit of data from that service.
Feel like your two funds can continue to support it?
Correct. That's right.
So,
I will not be asking for any other money. It will come from these funds.
so your plan and what you're presenting to us, which looks like a great plan, we appreciate you doing your homework on that, will be at no additional cost to the taxpayer.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just a matter of us authorizing you to use these funds to pay for this particular.
Correct. Because the identity security, you do have to approve. And so, you know, for me to use those funds to pay for this, which is what will be done.
Rosemary, is the system you have now, was it installed by our IT person?
Correct. And we will still need that part of the IT system that runs all of the other programs, our day-to-day, other work within the office. This is just the storage of all of our documents. You know, we have done back images to 1832. So we have all those on file. And right now we are back indexing, which the 3 of us have gotten back to the 1960s, which that's pretty far back for most counties. So all that information we have to make sure that we protect.
My question then to George is, if she's having problems, are we going to be faced with this with other offices having the same problems?
With being blocked out?
Well, with their systems, that they're not all the same systems, right?
Correct.
Well, it's continuous because we're always looking to keep out the malware and the ransomware, because that's a huge issue.
Yes, it is.
And it does cause problems when we change over. We just changed over to Windows 10, and anytime you do that, there's going to be an issue for a while until we get it straightened out. But most of the time, it's because we're working with state software. Anytime we work with the state, a lot of times they're not up to standards of what we would need for our equipment for the Windows 10. They're working with Windows 7, and so it is an issue.
Kim, I will say Preferred IT is in favor of the Recorder's Office having Fidlar and Bastion host all the documents and taking them off of the county server.
Okay, do we have, I'm assuming we have them under contract? So is their contract gonna be, the cost of that gonna be dropping since some of the offices will eventually do away with their help?
I don't think I'll be quiet.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't think we're billed per software unit. It's just a flat cost for service of the entire county.
But it will make a difference as far as the number of gigabytes
Yes.
that we're using. And we do get charged for that because a lot of that goes to the cloud and we get charged for that. So that would be a savings, but it wouldn't have anything to do with preferred IT really.
So we can't say what's gonna save me $500 because we're charged $500 to support that. We can't break it down like that.
And I do have to say, I don't know if you saw in their packet, Fidlar covers 240 counties in 15 states. And they really are, between all the states, one thing you find is that they see something different happening everywhere. So they're more prepared for what's happening across the span than just here in our area or here in Indiana. So I think it's one of the things that makes them more successful at finding hackers, people trying to get into the documents.
And I would like to say that we get a report every quarter from Preferred IT of the number of hits that we've had for people trying to hit us with ransomware and any type of hacking. And it's thousands and thousands of attacks that we have every quarter.
Cyber liability insurance coverage too.
And that's another thing, is we're adding cyber liability insurance, so that if we do have downtime, at least that any cost that we have will get reimbursed. That's,
And we currently have that coverage.
but we're upping that
Yes.
coverage.
Now, at this time, we do also pay them for a yearly life cycle. That's for the software program itself. What that gives us is any updates that comes to their system. That's all paid out of our perpetuation fund too, and at this time, it's around $18,000 a year. So our department's already paying for that.
So do we have a resolution?
No, this would just be a request to spend funds, so it wouldn't be in the form of a resolution. Is that correct?
How you keep track of it, I don't know, but I do, we allow her to enter this contract.
For motion, do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. Those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it is passed unanimously for permission to go ahead with that expenditure, and the money will be available to you.
Thank you.
John Woodmansee, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's John Woodmansee. I'm with Purdue Extension here in Whitley County. And you've heard from some of my other colleagues in past months. I'm here to talk about just an update to our program called Agriculture and Natural Resources. That's what I am involved with. And we're going to be spending most of our time just on this first summary page. The second page is there just for your information if you want to peruse through that. But these are some of the things that I've been involved with in recent months to kind of give you a picture of some of the things that I do. Starting back with the Fort Wayne Farm Show under agriculture there, I work with a group of regional educators. The total attendance at that show is over 30,000 in Fort Wayne, and we work with Soil and Water Conservation District to put on some educational sessions at that particular event, and we had just over 1,000 attend those educational sessions. The second thing there is called private applicator recertification programs, and for our farmers who are private applicators, in other words, they spray their own crops, they have to maintain their license, their private applicator license, and so they have to have 3 meetings within the 5-year period of their license so that they don't have to go and take another test. They can recertify. And so I conducted 3 of those programs this past year, and just a little over 150 at those programs. We also have some of those programs at Fort Wayne Farm Show and also at our Northeast Purdue Ag Center. Going on down, I work with pork producers and Indiana Beef Cattle Association here in the county for some of their meetings. The pork producers in Whitley County do a swine evaluation show just before the fair. Also have a Queen and Ambassador contest. And the beef producers, that's kind of a regional program, an annual meeting they have in January. We have the privilege of having a Purdue farm here in Whitley County called Northeast Purdue Ag Center, just south of town. We have 2 main events there. We got one coming up in June that's mainly for commercial applicators, and then also one in August is a field day for local farmers, and that's the one that I'm actually the kind of the lead person on that field day, and we have a lot of local engagement with our farmers there. Also held a succession planning workshop. As you know, as people age, the need comes about to pass on management and ownership to the next generation. So the last couple of years, I've had a succession planning workshop for local farmers in that regard. Under horticulture and natural resources, or horticulture and master gardeners, excuse me, do have a master gardener basic training program each fall. That's structured almost like a college course. It's a 3-hour class once a week for about 14 weeks. And we had 13 to 15 graduate through that. Our master gardeners themselves are a very active group here in Whitley County. They have volunteered over 2,700 hours this past year. And they've done those volunteer hours in a number of ways, through symposiums and workshops, but also through maintaining a lot of the public gardens that you see. They're not the only group, for instance, at Morse's Park, but they are a key group that helps keep those gardens up to date. They also have demonstration gardens out at the fairgrounds. And according to the independent sector, those volunteer hours have a value of over $67,000 to the local community. And as you view those gardens and these public places, that kind of increases the curb appeal of Whitley County to its residents and its businesses. One of the key programs our local master gardeners put on is a symposium, and we had 157 at that this past year, and I gave a presentation on protecting pollinators. Under forestry and natural resources, did a couple of interesting extra programs out at NEPAC. One was a venison processing workshop where we actually had a harvested deer there, and we strung it up, and we showed the proper way, as far as food safety methods and so forth, to process that deer and get the meat. And then we enjoyed a venison supper that night. Had a pond and wildlife management workshop out at NEPAC as well, to talk about pond management and wildlife management concepts. I worked with Whitley County Soil and Water Conservation District to do an Envirothon and teach the forestry section of that to 55 youth. And recently did a forest management workshop talking about invasive species and also woodland management. Besides that, just at the bottom there, do a weekly newspaper article on a variety of different subjects, and have a lot of client inquiries on various things around the home, yard, garden, farm, and of course I serve on the Plan Commission as well. That's a monthly commitment. So The second page will talk a little more about master gardeners and who they are and what they do. I'll just leave that with you to kind of look at, but I'll be glad to answer any questions or that you might have for me. That's my update for today.
Thank you for everything you do. I'd like to add not only your participation with the private applicators, but also the information that you provide for the for-hire applicators is very useful, so I appreciate that.
Appreciate that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the ordinance adopting the County of Whitley, Indiana, the job descriptions on the information that we received last month. So, this would be, no, we've already done that one number. Did 5 and 6.
You did.
Have those been looked over by everybody that needs to look them over?
We didn't propose the tax.
All the department heads, when they've dealt with their employees also.
Okay, that is correct. This would be,
She had 06.
okay. We did not adopt that. This,
Oh, we said it.
if all goes at plan.
So we did not.
It would be 2019-07 is what we will title this. And this is for the job description, accepting the job descriptions only and not any
Wage increases, just job
We're just
description.
talking about accepting the job description plan as they presented to us and adopting that plan. And you've got the copy, that's the official copy.
So then is the intention to have every employee acknowledge their job description in the form of a signature? And what, if anything, have we done to ensure that job descriptions are not inflated? Meaning that we're not putting things in job descriptions that are not typical job duties of a person that would impact how their job factors for pay.
That's exactly why we had WIS involved in that, to make sure that it wasn't inflated. And with their experience that they have with government agencies, it worked out well because they actually did talk to our employees, they talked to the department heads, and they pretty well can filter things out as what's fluff and what's not. Where with our plan, or our personnel committee, it was difficult for us, but that's what they do.
Yeah.
And I think along with that, there was a wide range of counties, not only regionally, but counties our size within the state, that those same type job descriptions were compared to make sure that we weren't out of line with what those job descriptions are. That's my understanding, if that's correct. But the first part of his question, I'm not sure if I heard the answer to that, though. Are we going to sit down with each employee then and have them sign, read, and sign, and so they have the understanding, we're on the same page, that they understand what their job descriptions are if they're not already been privileged to that information?
And we can't do that until we get approval.
Oh, absolutely, but that's just, I think that was your
I
question.
just wanted to clarify that was the intention, and wanted to have both of those questions on record.
And that will be filed in their permanent personnel file as this is the job description. That will be what will be provided if there's ever a work comp or FMLA and they.
Yep, that's great. I'm in full support of it. And if I may, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
I would make a motion that we adopt the job descriptions.
This is just strictly a job description.
Would it help? Would it help if I would read this ordinance?
Sure, go ahead.
We all have a copy, but would it help if I read it, or are we comfortable with it? whereas the County of Whitley, Indiana is an equal opportunity employer, and whereas it is the intent of Whitley County, Indiana, to comply with the applicable federal and state of Indiana employment laws and regulations, and whereas Indiana Code 36-2-5-3, Section 3, subsection A, establishes that the county fiscal body shall fix the compensation of officers, deputies, and other employees whose compensation is payable from the county general fund, county highway fund, county health fund, county park and recreation fund, aviation fund? Is that right?
Some communities have an aviation fund, but we don't.
So that's just part of that? Okay. I wanted to make sure that we hadn't started something that caught me off guard, that we hadn't started something that I was not aware of. Or any other fund from which the county auditor issues warrants for compensation. This includes the power to, number one, fix number of officers, deputies, and other employees. 2, describe and classify positions and services. 3, adopt schedules of compensation. And 4, hire or contract with persons to assist in the development of compensation. And whereas the Whitley County Council wishes to establish accurate job descriptions for county positions, now therefore it is ordained as follows. A, the attached job descriptions describe and classify positions and services and are adopted as the official job description for all county positions. In the future, as new jobs are added or the adopted job descriptions change, new job descriptions shall be prepared or updated and presented to the county council for approval. B, the attached FLSA exempt, excluded, and non-exempt classifications are hereby adopted for the purposes of calculating overtime for employees holding non-exempt positions. Employees holding exempt or excluded positions are not eligible to and shall not receive FLSA overtime or FLSA compensatory time. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect after its adoption by the Whitley County Council. And then it has the adopted this blank day of blank month 2019. So that is what we are addressing, simply is just the fact that we have put a structure in place to evaluate the jobs.
I would second the motion.
My motion stands for...
I have a motion and a second. I would call for any further discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand, and those opposed, the same, and let it be shown that it was passed unanimously with all board members present. Next item on the agenda is the commissioner report, please.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. It's been, commissioners have been pretty busy the last couple of months here. We've got budget time that we're coming up with. We've got not only the commissioner's budget, but we've also got CEDA budget that we'll be presenting to the council probably next month for your approval. We've been working with different quote processes right now. This time of the year, we're pretty busy on that. We right now have a print management system that we've gone through the 5-year program on that. We're determining, we've got quotes coming in from 3 different operations for that, 3 different businesses, to make sure that we properly vet what we're doing on the print management services, whether we even go forward with it, what we do with it, but we will be presenting that to the council also. We have our IT services. We've got 3 businesses doing quotes on IT services. We have to be very careful on that because of the fact, as you saw with Rosemary, that there are a lot of issues that we have with IT, but we are exploring the possibilities of going to different places for the IT services. Health insurance, we've been working with the health insurance. We've got 3 quotes on the health insurance, and right now, what the employee is paying is approximately 85 to 90% of what our costs are on the insurances. That's real low. I mean, we treat our employees very well as far as what they have to pay for their insurance. But we are doing some changes. The few changes that we're doing is emergency room visits. we're trying to discourage, we were at $150 copay on emergency room visits, and there's been a lot of emergency room visits that could have been used like a ready med or something like that, that really should be used instead of emergency room. So we've taken the copay on that to $300 copay per visit, and then the deductible and the co-insurance. Specialist visit, doctor's visits, we still kept at $20, but a specialist is going to be a $40 per visit. And then specialty drugs are going to be excluded under the plan, which we're not necessarily excluding them. We work with RX Help, and RX Help is a program that works with people with specialty drugs, and it's actually kind of a grant program that a lot of times that there's no cost at all with the RX Help. So we're still taking care of our employees, but it's just a different program that we're working with. Other than that, any questions on any of those? And I know there's a lot of data and information. Anytime you would like to, we have that available in the Commissioner's office. It will be able to go through that with you and show you the different quotes that we have on that. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Shennebury. She's our new Commissioner's Assistant, and we appreciate what she's doing for us. And I think that's about it for us right now.
Very good. I would ask at this time, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting as they were presented to you? And are there any additions or corrections as they were presented? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion for last month's meeting minutes, please.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And the opposed, the same. We have Councilman Barrett abstaining, as he was not here, and everybody else passed it unanimously.
And there will be two. We have the joint meeting as well. The commissioners have already signed, so I don't want to...
Okay. Is there any other input or business for the good of the cause from the public today? Hearing none, Councilman Barrett, please.
One question on the job classifications and compensation on it. Is that public record, and is it open for anybody to observe other than council members and
What was the question? I'm sorry.
under the job classification and compensation report, is that report with the job classifications open for general public, employees of Whitley County?
We have not done that yet. It'll probably be released to the department heads. And then they can work with their employees at that time if they want to share that. But I think that has to be under consideration with the council before we can do anything. We can't really tell anybody that the compensation is going to change or anything, but the council as personnel committee is going to have to approve that one way or another, whatever you'd like to do, whether it stays the same or whether you use the recommendations of WIS.
Will that be brought to a vote at a later date, general consensus, I think?
Well, no, go ahead.
All of this, you're referring to the summary report, correct? Anything to do with the summary report and the pay scales, that's all council. Commissioners don't really have input in the acceptance of this. This is up to.
So basically, it will be our decision at some point whether we release it to general employees or whoever needs it.
And it's just presented as a tool to help you.
Just for the record, I am in favor of having that information available to whoever wants it.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Should we do that at this time, or should we wait?
The meeting's still open. If you're...
That is a motion.
is that just the Excel spreadsheet of the pay analysis, or does that include the pay analysis and the compensation analysis summary report?
All the above.
All the above. Okay, they're scanned and ready to be emailed out, whatever you guys decide. It's up to you.
On my job, I think it just needs to be available, and somebody wanting to be employed in the county, they ought to be able to look at what they're getting involved in.
I have a motion, I'll call for a second so we can move to further discussion if there is a second. So I have a motion and a second, now we'll go to further discussion.
Can you restate the motion for me?
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is your motion on the study that we did with WIS, along with the compensation package and all the information that they gathered and presented to us, that we had already presented to us in a public meeting, that we are going to release that to anybody that asks or requests for any and all of that report.
Yes. That's what I understood it.
Do we need to do that, or, I guess?
I think it's the responsible thing to do, I personally. It keeps everything transparent on what the report came back, what the tax dollars that were spent to gather this information, exactly what the report is, exactly where all of our job positions fall within comparables, not only in our region, but throughout the state for equal counties of our size, and I think it's just very responsible to provide that information. Now, we have a tough job in front of us on deciding how we're going to move forward with utilizing that information. We've already adopted the job descriptions, so we've done that part of it, but now going into the budgetary cycle, we are going to have to look at and be responsible to the tax dollar and to our employees to get them in line with what this study tells us that we should be in line with. So I think that is good information for people to have and to see that we are working towards that goal of being not only transparent, but proactive in making sure that we are taking care of our most valuable assets, which are our employees.
And the bottom line is on it, the compensation comes from the amount of revenues that we have coming into the county and any projected revenues we have coming into the county on it. And as council members, we are the final decision on how to utilize these revenues.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, would you like us to just make it available, or do you want us to go ahead and email it to everyone, all the employees?
I think it's just, I think it should just be, anybody that asks for it should be provided to.
So it'll be available for anyone.
Available for anybody that requests it, it should be provided
The way I
to.
see it.
And I think that's what the motion
I
was.
don't think you need to email to every employee, they could just, if they request it, you have it, and present it to them.
So-
That's the way I,
And because they're public employees, there is no privacy violation at risk?
Nope, not with this information. I mean, it's publicized in the paper what they make every year. It's public information.
I will say that ideally, all of this information truly was presented as a tool for council members to use to help in evaluations of salaries. So ultimately, what I assumed the goal would be was to you guys to take this information and kind of come up with a plan before it was presented to anybody that wanted it, to say, okay, this is what they gave us, this was the results of the study, we looked at it, we are all in, we'll do this, or we'd like to do it but take 5 years to get to this point, or we can do, in the evaluation of the county budget, we can financially do this much, or for this job, you know, there are literally dozens of different ways you can take this and use it. And so it would have been kind of beneficial to kind of have an idea of when people come back to us and say, okay, I've got this, how do you want me to budget for it when I do my budget for the council, for the July meeting? They're going to take this information and they're going to say, this is what we should be making, and that's what they're going to present in their budgets.
That's what they should.
Because we haven't given them any guidelines on how to follow in regards to how to use this information. But I'm
think-
all for sharing it. I just want you
think in
guys
the-
to understand the reason I
Well, that is the
hesitated
guideline.
before was just
In the past, we have not left that in the hands of the department heads. We've had them supply or to provide to us in the budgetary cycle and the meetings with them, just the information on their department, and wages are, or the possibility of wages or compensation for employees is a separate issue that they are not asked to address. Correct? I mean, that's what we've done. So I think we're going to probably just stick to that process and look at this. I mean, we've got this information at a great time, because it's right in our budgetary cycle. I mean, it's right in
that was the
the
intention.
time of the year where we're going to really take it and run with. So we've got that challenge ahead of us, and I think that we've got some tough decisions to make. But full transparency is where we need to be, and there's no information that is in that report that I want to keep suppressed, or that I don't want people to know. So going forward into this process, I think it should be out there, and I would tell you to, if you get people that call that start asking questions or say, well, what about this, that, and the other, we all have email addresses and phones, you direct them to us for input as far as that, but I don't know that we'll have a lot to share with them until we do our budgetary cycle and come up with that budget. But I don't think that it's, and eventually the information that's there is all going to be presented. So I don't see any reason that we stop that or suppress that at this point. It just needs to be out there. So I appreciate your motion. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will go to a vote on this. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same, and let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
And just need a motion to have you.
Okay. Tax abatements. I know traditionally the chair signs all of these, but this year there's going to be a lottery. The auditor's office has received the CF1s, and all of the business appeared to be in compliance. You're all more than welcome to go through and review them. I have real property and personal property abatements separated and ready to be signed. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve the tax abatements for the chairman to sign.
I'll second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, everybody's in favor of me reviewing these and signing off on them, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. And let it be shown as passed unanimously with all board members present. So we made it through John. Now we're to Bill, please. I'm sorry, Councilman over there. Councilman Comfort?
Nothing bad.
Councilman Warner?
Nothing.
Councilman Wheeler?
Nothing.
Vice Chair Banks? And I have nothing else. Meeting is adjourned.
Where's our other meeting?
Oh, before we go, real quick, we have to look at a date for our budget meetings. Probably, I mean, we need to look in July, so we need